Hey yo, welcome to another of my sewing projects. So this is like my fab from everything I've been making. Like I'm in love with this jumpsuit. Like I love this jumpsuit. I'm going to make like 100. Just kidding, but I'm going to make more. So here is a rough sketch of what I wanted to do. Okay, and this is what I made actually. So I was like, I just drew different ideas. First I went for a short sleeve, then a long sleeve, then the pocket and the top stitch, because I did a top stitch as you can see. Then the collar, I wanted a long collar or a short collar. This is like a rough sketch of an idea of what I have, of what I want the jumpsuit to look like. So after this rough sketch, I came up with a clear version of my idea. So this is the clear view of what I want the jumpsuit to look like. So I got this fabric. It's a 4 yards cotton fabric, and you can see it's a sample fabric also, so it's not a whole, it's joined. So yeah, I have different thread ideas of how I want the top stitch design to look like. So the white thread, I have this gold, which gives it the denim feel. I have this pink, which I ended up using because I have a button. So I ended up using the pink, and it also gives this feminine touch to the jumpsuit, makes the jumpsuit looks girly. So yeah, I drafted an illustration for the jumpsuit using my measurement. So this illustration was made after I have finished drafting my pattern. So after drafting my pattern, I used the measurement on my pattern paper to create this illustration. So this illustration is in my size. So I'm going to put a link where you can get the photograph of this illustration and follow up. I used a newspaper to create my pattern. I also used my basic bodice block and my trousers block. So I traced from the shoulder to the waist and down to my trousers block. So that is how I created the pattern. So yeah, this is the pattern after drafting, and here are the pattern pieces. I started by pressing my pockets. So I used the pattern piece, folded it up to the pattern piece and press, so I get the same size as the pattern piece. Another option for the pocket is to create a facing, which will make the job neater. But this is a personal jumpsuit and I'm not dashing it out, I'm not selling this. So I want to manage my fabric, so I just made one pocket piece for each side and fold like this, and so here are my pieces. They're all ready to be sewn. It's time to sew. I started with the front bodice pieces. So here I identify where the pocket pieces should be placed on the bodice by using the pattern paper, and also creating like a mark on the pieces where the pocket should be placed. So I did that. I aligned the pocket first and marked the spot where it should be placed, then before sewing the pocket. So what I did was to, on the wrong side of the fabric, I double fold the top part of the pocket, pin and sew. Like I said earlier, if you're using a facing, you don't need to do all this because the edges will be covered, so you don't need to do all this. So next I pinned the pockets on the buttocks exactly where it should be, where the pocket should be. Then I sewed using the pink thread just to create the the design, the top stitch design. I sewed close to the edge of the pockets. Next is to also align the pocket cover, and so having in mind that the top stitch of the pocket cover has to align with the pocket itself, I went ahead to lock the top of the pocket cover and also pin, so my top stitch would just have to go in line with the pocket itself. I'm going to be using a button, so I have to sew a buttonhole design on the pocket cover. You can use a snap button if you want, or you can just sew a button hole on the pocket cover before attaching the cover to the buttocks. Next, I sewed the cover covering the pocket. I have the intention of using this pocket, so if you're going to be using your pocket, I think you should use a facing for the cover. So next is to attach the pants pockets to the pants, and also so I have an idea of how I want the top stitch to look like, so you can just see what I did and follow along, or you can create your own top stitch design. First I sewed on the slant edge, then I went in half an inch, giving it a 2-line top stitch design. I pinned the pockets in place, and so to attach the pockets and also create my top stitch design. Next is to attach the front bodice to the front pants. So I'm using a waistband here. So what I did was to place the waistband front facing the front bodice and pin at the waist side, then turn it over, the front facing the front pants, then pin. I did that for the other side too. So here we go. I sewed and locked the edges. After sewing, I pressed so I can sew the top stitch. At first I didn't know what to sew. I don't know how to design. I didn't know the design I wanted, so I just played with it a little bit. I sewed on the seam line, then I went in like 2/8 inch, then sew, but I had to, because it didn't really look good, so I had to rip the stitches off, then sew close to the waistband edge. So as you can see, it's not looking really smooth and fine, so I had to rip all the stitches off, then sew at the top, that's the bodice parts, the bodice side on the edge. All done, it's time to sew the button band and the crotch, the front crotch together. So what I did first was to lock the edges, that's from the crotch all the way to the top of the button band. Next, I placed the two front pieces together and pin at the crotch area just to hold it together before double folding the button band to the wrong side of the fabric. I already have my button band notched, so I know where my button band should stop. So I just double fold to the wrong side of the fabric, then sew. I chose the easy method to sew this my button band because the other methods you can use a zipper, you can use the placket method, but I just used like no stress method for me right now. So what I did, my sewing style was that while sewing the button band, I left like an 1 inch space on the band down close to the crotch in order for me to lap it together just like this. Like I said, I left 1 inch space on the button band down, so I didn't sew the button band all the way down to the crotch, so I'll be able to lap it together. For the overlap, I used my fabric color thread. Then for the other side, I used the pink thread. But later on, I sewed it just to control the way the top stitch would look. So I just used the fabric thread first to test. Then I used the pink thread to sew on it, so it's not visible, you can't see the fabric thread. Before I forget, I used 4 stitch lengths for my top stitch just to make everything uniform. Next, I sewed the front crotch to be close to the band, to the button band. After sewing the button band and the crotch, I lapped the button band, just like so. Pin at the wrong side of the fabric, but sew at the front side or the right side of the fabric. I used the fabric thread to create the design, the crotch design. My camera wasn't recording, so I just did that and will show you using the pink thread. So yeah, I've already done that with the fabric thread, so I'm just going to show you with the pink thread. So I changed to the pink thread so I can finally do my top stitch on the button band. After sewing, the fabric thread wasn't visible at all, so the next thing I did was to top stitch at the crotch area, thereby closing the opening at the crotch area and creating my top stitch design. This is all done, the front pieces all attached and done. So the next step is to sew the back pieces together. So I pinned the back crotch, pant crotch together and sew. After sewing, I locked and pressed. Next is to attach the waistband and the back bodice to the pants. Same as the front piece, I placed the band on the pants pin and also placed the back bodice pin. So lock, press, and all that goodie. Next is to sew the top stitch on the waistband. So I did the same thing as the front, the same design as the front. So I also used stitch length 4 just to make the top stitch uniform. So after sewing the top stitches, I also sewed top stitch at the crotch. You can decide if you want pockets for the back pants piece, but I don't want pockets. I don't want any more pockets. I don't like too much pockets. So you can decide if you want pockets. So next is to pin the front and back piece at the shoulder and sew. So after pinning, I locked first before sewing. Next is to attach the sleeve. I already created my sleeve because I have 2 videos on how to create a sleeve with cuff. So you should check that video out. I'll put the video on the screen and you should check the video out. I have a recent video on how to create a placket and the cuff and the whole sleeve thing. Here I pinned the sleeve to the armhole and lock first before sewing. After sewing this, it's time to sew all the side seam together, the inseam and the out seam, the sleeve, everything. Just attach the front piece to the back piece. So I locked first before sewing. Next is to attach the collar. So you should check out the illustration on how to create this pointy collar, and also watch the video on the screen on how to create a collar in general. So I've been using that method. I am going to do a fresh video on how to create a 2-piece collar, but I have been using it's just same thing. So I attached my collar to my jumpsuit and so watch the video. It's very useful to creating a 2-piece collar, a 2-piece shirt collar. Next I hemmed at the bottom of the jumpsuit jumpsuit. I double fold to the wrong side of the fabric and sew. I also did my top stitch design on the collar. So after this, I made my button holes. So this is basically it. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not leave without liking this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more lovely videos, sewing videos like this. I still have more projects to work on, my sewing project, so stay tuned. Subscribe, like, share. Thank you so much. Bye.